Hello and welcome to Zerocarbonista, Series 6. I'm Ian Collins, and this is your number one go-to podcast for all matters environmental based. If it's green, it is in. And here's the thing, Dale Vince, I'm thinking, we've been doing this a long, long time. This thing is growing like wildfire. People picking it up and discovering it all the time. And now, I didn't sleep last night. I didn't sleep out of worry because I thought this might be our last episode because you've got a new job, maybe.
I see. Okay. Yeah,
I've been messing around on podcasts with your grand new job.
Yeah. I got bored of being, freelance. I've been meaning to mention this for a while. I applied probably about a month ago for the vacancy to be the chair of the Climate Change Committee. I thought that would be a bit of a hoot, actually, but also when I looked at the job description, I thought, blimey, I fit that bill, right? They wanted somebody with a broad understanding of all of these sustainability issues. I've been doing that for 3 decades. They wanted somebody that had been a chairman, knew how to be a chairman. I've been doing that for a couple of decades. And they wanted somebody that could communicate well to the media and to the public and stuff like that and get complex, things across to other people. I thought, that's my day job, actually.
Sure.
I tick these boxes. So I thought, I'll give it a go. I thought, I got about a snowball's chance in hell, probably, because of who I am, my profile. You can imagine the right-wing media frenzy if I got this job. And news in just yesterday is I haven't. Shit. I was a bit disappointed.
What kind of rigged system is this? I mean,
they said I got one of those conversations I probably haven't had for decades. It was like, well, we kind of just thought we'd ring you personally, and you're waiting to know which, and it's like just to share with you like the bad news or whatever it was. Oh, yeah, here we go. They had so many applicants apparently, and I didn't make it to the shortlist. And I'm like, I was curious how many people in the shortlist. 7. And in my head, I'm like, what? You think there are 7 people in this country better qualified than me to be the chairman of the Climate Change Committee? I'm a little bit surprised.
I'm surprised. I'm not believing any of this shit. I would suggest, Dale, that firstly, I had loads of applications. Well, I mean, it's a very specific job with, clear, specific brief to it. And I think, reasonably argue that very few people could adequately, authentically tick all those boxes. So I'm smelling a rat on this. I'm going to write to them. The campaign starts here, and I've just got a crowdfunder going as we.
Wow, that's so quick. That was so quick.
So we live in a digital world, you see.
Yes.
And you being an IT expert would understand that.
Well, yeah, I can turn it off and on again. That solves 90% of all IT problems.
Well, it does when we're recording this, doesn't it? I mean, seriously.
It does.
Well, I'm sorry that you didn't get the job, but it now leaves us with the really intriguing wait for who did get the job.
Yes. Yeah. And talking of smelling a rat, let's talk about chicken shit.
Well, I mean, this podcast is nothing without a bit of poulou à la merde detail. I have no idea if that's correct, but it sort of sounds a bit that it might be. Chicken manure is classified as industrial waste. What's all this about?
Or it can be, is the actual ruling. So it's from the High Court. It's like hot off the presses this week.
Yeah.
And it seems that the NFU lost a case that they brought to the High Court, and it's around factory farms, mega farms in the Wye Valley in this particular instance that pump and dump the poo into the river. The River Wye is being killed by industrial farming, whether it's direct dumping or runoff from adjacent land. And at the moment, when you go for planning for these things, which is happening right now, there's an issue over whether or not the chicken shit or the pig shit or whatever it is a byproduct of agriculture, which the NFU argued, and therefore farmers don't have to plan for what they're going to do with it or make clear in the planning application, or whether it's a waste product, in which case different regulations come to the fore. And farmers then have to have a plan for disposal of this stuff. It's a fantastic win in the High Court for people that don't want to see more factory farms in Britain, don't want to see more pollution of the rivers and stuff like that, and do want to see farmers take responsibility for the shit that they produce.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to reply in a fashion retrospectively to factory farms that are already up and running. And we're certainly going to give that a go to see if we can take that to the courts and say, these guys, they don't have a waste disposal plan, actually. And this High Court ruling says really they should have one.
Got it. Well, I wonder if our friends, the Australians, will be adopting the old chicken shit thing, because we know we've had the Aussies in the dock uh, more occasions than probably any other country, essentially for their lack of um, environmental considerations, which is kind of odd because it's a big outdoor country, with massive expanse of, incredible nature and all that goes with it. You might think if anyone was leading the pack, it'd be Australia, but they're not usually.
Mm.
But maybe that's about to change, Dale.
Well, I don't know. I just want to say, if Trump was a country, I think he'd be topping the list because he's not a complete country. He might be a complete. I don't know, but apart from that, um, apart from that, this story is lovely because in Australia they're 3D printing a 2 or 3 story house. It's not been done there before. I think they've done a single story house a few years ago, and I've seen the videos of it. It's really fantastic. We talk about 3D printing, and you might think they take a printer to site and, like, I don't know, print a
Like an old
house
cannon or something.
inside print a house. It's just a big cannon with a house inside it, but they don't. What you've got is this concrete nozzle going backwards and forwards and building walls, rather than bricklaying and that kind of stuff. And they can build a house in, I think it's 5 days or something like that. It's very fast, it's very kind of economic and environmentally effective, and I think it's a really interesting way to build houses,
Yeah.
right now, not just in the future. I mean, our government wants to build 1.5 million homes in the next 5 years. That's a big ask. And I'm
Maybe
hoping
this is
that
the way. I think they've got to lose this word 3D printer, though. I mean, we keep
yeah,
hearing this because
yeah,
it's not really a 3D printer, is it?
it's not. It's a concrete nozzle controlled by a computer.
Yeah.
But then that doesn't roll off the tongue, does it?
No, or off the printer,
That's
for
right.
that matter. I tell you who we
That's
should
it.
talk about, because we were going to mention this last week, but it's quite timely that we saved it for this week, because actually the story has kind of got worse for Elon Musk. He's the Doge man who's going around every state department in America saying, "F off, you're all too expensive," in a Cockney accent for some peculiar reason. But now he's found himself in a curious situation where the old Tesla company has taken a bit of a hit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was one day this week, might have been yesterday. He saw 30 billion wiped off his personal fortune, which was only about 10%. So he's not exactly overnight poor. I think he's still
Mm.
number one, richest dick in the world. Um, and I think since December, 800 billion has been wiped off the value of Tesla. Now, there's been a kickback against Tesla, the company,
Yep.
Tesla, the cars. There's been firebombing of Tesla car parks outside dealerships and of supercharger installations. Somebody started up a "We All Hate Elon" kind of online group,
Yep.
um, selling stickers and shit like that. And it's not just about what he's doing at Doge; it's the Nazi salute more than anything else. I think it's the kind of the swerve to the right wing that the self-driving car that is Elon Musk has taken. And I have to say I'm quite happy about it. I
Well, there's
think.
also, but there are other models out there now that are just as good and cheaper. There's that basic kind of economic fact.
Yeah, I mean, I never think that they've been good cars. They've always been overpriced and badly made, and shit like that. I'm just not a fan of Tesla cars. But then, for me, it starts by having had that run-in with Musk many years ago. The incredible dishonesty and the attitude taken by his company when coming to Britain to start their electric car sales, in respect of our electric highway, which they tried to take from us. The other thing I loved about Musk news in the last week came from SpaceX. The ultimate in estate agent speak, right? I've never heard anything like it. Another one of Musk's rockets has blown up, right? But SpaceX, his company, put out a tweet saying that the rocket experienced, get this, rapid, unscheduled disassembly. That's what blowing up is called in the world of
Rapid,
Musk.
unscheduled disassembly. I mean,
What the
this thing
fuck?
is about as as a rocket could be. There's nothing left of this mama. It is absolutely disintegrated into bits of coal,
No, it
molten
wasn't.
metal lying all
No,
over
it
the
wasn't.
place.
It was unscheduled disassembly. That's all it was. Somebody took it
Yeah,
apart before they were meant to. That's
yeah.
all it is.
Yeah, try using that in court if somebody's trying to sue you over a car crash. They no, no, no,
Yeah.
no. It's an unscheduled disassembly. The fact that I was doing 120 on the M6 doesn't come into it. Should we talk about energy bills just briefly, Dale? Energy bills could fall by 250 quid a year if you live near a pylon project. What's going on here?
Yeah, so this is the government's latest attempt to kind of get over the NIMBY problem in order to enable the 100% green energy by 2030. We need a lot of new power projects, wind and sun, but we also need to get that power to different parts of the country. That means new pylons. And they've talked big about, like, standing up to the NIMBYs in the past, which is good talk. And now they're saying, well, actually, maybe we give you a sweetener, 250 quid a year, if you live near a pylon. And I think it's if you live within half a kilometre of a pylon or something like that. Now, look, I'm not against the idea completely. I think it's a bit of a stretch, actually. The money doesn't come from nowhere. The pylon people have to pay it. So your energy bill might go down if you live near a new pylon, but energy bills overall are just going to go up, which is just like, a matter of physics or something like that, let's say. But the thing that really gets me about it is it's a funny principle to say, if you live near some infrastructure, we're going to give you something, some financial reward. Listen, how many people live near Heathrow? I don't know. But I can tell you this. If the third runway of Heathrow goes ahead, 500,000 people will be affected and overflown for the first time. Now, how much are they going to be paid for living near a new runway?
Yeah.
I think if we're going to have this principle for people that live in the country, we should have it for people that live in cities as well, because they live near vital national infrastructure as well.
Good point. I live not far from a Shell garage, and on a windy day, it freaking stinks. I mean, do I get some money for that?
Yeah, I think you should.
I think I should.
I think you should.
Here's a question that came in from Tukmion, who says he's right. He's talking about you responding on Twitter to a post about wealth tax. I know you've talked a bit about this in the last 7 days as well. We talked about it on the podcast just last week too, and many times before. Why won't Labour do it, is essentially. We had loads of people with that very question. Why won't Labour do it?
I think obviously there's the right-wing press are aligned against it, aren't they? There was a story out this week. If you remember, when Labour proposed taking away the tax loophole of private schools, the right-wing press railed against it and said it's going to crush the public sector school system, because all of these rich people sending their kids to private school will suddenly not do that, and they'll send them all to public schools. I always get confused by the idea of public and private schools, because
are they the same thing?
They're often called public schools, aren't they? So I don't know what to call the actual really public ones, which so that gets confusing. But anyway, there was a story out this week that said actually it didn't happen at all. It just hasn't happened, right? Adding VAT to private school fees has made no difference at all. And when you talk about tax, you get the same thing from the right-wing press. Back at the last budget, increase in capital gains tax, that kind of stuff is going to drive millionaires abroad. And when the numbers came out, it was 0.3% of Britain's millionaires had left the country. I say, good luck, off you go. And it'll be the same story when you talk about a wealth tax. So Labour are shy of it for that reason, I think. I don't know. There's another budget coming up, and I haven't given up hope that they do something, because there is a new 10 billion funding gap, which is going to be filled. Part of that is for defence and stuff like that, and part of that is because things haven't turned out the way they looked 6 months ago. And that's going to be filled with cuts to welfare. And some of those fall on the shoulders of the people that really have the least and need it the most. Yeah. And there's a very good argument to be had to say, well, why don't we just take a tiny, tiny little bit
of
people that have so much money?
They won't even 10 million, only over 10 million, right?
That's right. And it only affects 20,000 people, and it's only 2%.
And it's going to raise how much?
£24 billion, which is a shit ton of money, right?
It's a lot of billions of pounds, 24.
Yeah. Yeah, so I hope they come back to it. I don't know why they haven't done it yet, except I think they're a little bit wary of being seen to be too left-wing, probably.
It could be that. Here's a question from Dawn on Insta, who says, Dale, please advise on operators being paid £180,000 per hour for turbines being turned off as there is nowhere for the power to go and getting paid for it. Is this true?
So I think the actual figures for last year were that it cost us about £1 billion to turn off some huge wind farms up in the north where we need less power at times when we had more power than the grid could handle. We come back to the pylon question, and we need more pylons to bring that power down south. £1 billion is a lot of money. It's a lot of waste. But in the future, we're going to have much more renewable energy than we need more often, because as we get to 100%, we've got to build a fleet of generators capable of minimizing the times when we don't have enough. Yeah. And so we've got to get into a place where we can handle this. And the answer is to not turn off, but to use the excess electricity to make hydrogen. We can store that. We can turn it back into electricity when we need it, or we can put it into the gas grid as a form of green gas. We can use 20% as a mixture with green gas in the gas grid. So the current situation is not good. It's solved by a mixture of pylons and hydrogen production.
Or you could get rid of all of that and vote for reform because they want to scrap all of this shit. Scrap net zero, exploit our huge gas reserves. This,
Yes.
Dale Vince, sounds like a perfectly reasonable policy because there's a shitload of gas down there. Why don't we use it while it's there?
It's a brilliant thing to talk about our huge gas reserves on the one hand. They also say that net zero is responsible for our energy bills. I was going to say the size of our energy bills, which is equal nonsense. So the, the new gas fields that are being proposed at the moment, that are a legacy from the last Tory administration, they will make 3 weeks worth of gas for Britain, right?
That's 3 weeks.
3 weeks worth for a year. Sorry, 3 weeks worth of gas a year. Oh, okay, yeah. So that's what it is. Yeah. So the contribution.
Well, it's a bit shit, isn't it? Either way.
Either way. Yeah. Let's just say that's that. We've got enough gas for 5 years in the North Sea completely. That's it. End of game. That's all we've got. 5 years. Now that's not a huge reserve of gas, in my view.
Okay. I would say that I don't know anything about drilling in the North Sea. I considered giving it a go once, but decided against it. Didn't really have the right implements. But yeah, I mean, 5 years, even I could say that's clearly rubbish.
It's not huge for something that began 30 years ago, is it? North Sea oil and gas, at least 30 years ago and more. We've got 5 years worth of gas left, and the new stuff coming on stream, if it comes on stream, will provide 3 weeks worth every year. I say that's pitiful. And actually, Farage should be ashamed to have talked about exploiting our huge gas reserves. Of course, he's not. He's not ashamed of anything. And then the idea that net zero is making our energy bills higher. Oh my God, it's just the most incredible nonsense, because it's the price of fossil fuels that holds our energy bills up, and the fact that we allow the price of gas to set the price of wind and sun. And the government still has yet to break the link between the price of gas and the price of renewable energy.
One would assume the government could do that, right? They could break the link.
Yeah, we're putting a new report out in a couple of days about breaking the link, what it's cost us so far since the energy crisis to have the link, and what it's going to cost into the future. Right. And then we're going to publish the Haynes manual for breaking the link. We're going to show how to do it.
Wow, the Haynes, I'd forgotten about Haynes manuals.
Yeah, forget about them.
Do you remember going into Halfords as a kind of, when you first started drilling and looking on the little rack to see if your Ford Escort Mark I was going to be on there?
To get a 250 in my case, but yes.
There you go. Same deal, right?
Haynes same deal.
Are they still around, Haynes? Do they still exist?
Fuck knows. If they do, they're probably owned in some tax haven by some, tax dodging knob.
That's very true. Worth a quick mention on London air pollution, down since the ULEZ extension for other boroughs.
Yeah, I mean, Sadiq Khan.
Or outer boroughs, that should be.
The outer boroughs. The man that the right wing love to hate for his amazing work on air quality in London. I was hearing the other day that the air quality in London is now the average of all cities in our country. It used to be by far the worst, and it's all about these controls on polluting vehicles entering London. I think 97% of vehicles that go into London now are compliant with the ULEZ, the ultra low emission zone, not just the low emission zone, which was the forerunner of all of that, of course. And he stood strong against all of the brickbats thrown at him by the right wing media about this kind of loss of freedom for people to just, drive polluting vehicles wherever they want and poison people, like it's a fundamental right, like the right to bear arms in America or some shit like that. He stood strong against that. He's cleaned up the air of London. It's a fantastic story.
Take my Castrol from my cold, dead hand. Don't be doing this. Here's a question from Boyd Darling on Facebook. What a great name. And here's the question. Yet again, Dale Vince, you sound like a Green. Are you going to switch your support to the Green Party from the so-called Labour Party to the party that actually talks sense on all things that matter to this country? He says, I understand your desire to unseat the Tories, but Labour so far aren't doing anything to support the issues that you stand for. There you go, Dale. Cross the floor, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's brilliant, right? That's almost equivalent to saying we have huge gas reserves. To say that Labour aren't doing anything, that's overlooking the fact that within 72 hours, they unbanned onshore wind. They unblocked a series of massive solar projects. They set a goal of 100% green energy by 2030. They said they would face down the Pylon NIMBYs. And there's another important point to make. that just after the election, one of the co-leaders of the Greens actually supported an anti-pylon campaign in his constituency, having campaigned in a similar fashion to Labour. We need pylons, we need renewable energy, etc. When it came to the crunch in his own constituency, he went with the crowd. So I just want to say the Greens aren't all that. I've got a lot of friends in the Green Party, a lot of time for the Green Party and all that kind of stuff, but they're not the only game in town. Labour have done amazing things on green policies and on the green economy. There's more to come, I'm certain of it.
Okay.
But you've got to just bear in mind one fundamental truth. The Green Party can't get into power, can't become the government, I don't know, this side of 100 years. And we haven't got 100 years. But what we have is a Labour Party that are open to the ideas of the Green Party and others in pursuing the green economy. And that's the one to roll with.
Before we get on to X-Rated Corner, a quick word on lab-grown foods and drinks, because we talked about lab-grown foods a few times over the time we've been doing this. Could be on the shelf within 2 years. The FSA are testing lab-grown sugar. Could be healthier than natural sugar. Lab-grown beef in there as well. So everybody's happy. I know some vegans or vegetarians won't go near that because of what it's trying to do, but at least you could go to sleep knowing that no animal was harmed in the process.
Yeah, well, not harmed badly. I mean, there's still the extraction of cells from live animals in order to start the culture in a lab. I don't see them getting around that anytime soon. But also on the list is dog food, lab-grown dog food. How amazing! In fact,
good luck with that. They've not met my dog. Freaking animal.
A couple of things to say. We are currently engaging with the FSA for our not lab-grown protein from grass, or in fact food from grass, because it isn't just protein that we've extracted. It's omega oils and B vitamins as well. So it's not a complete food, but it's got an awful lot of nutrients in it. Yeah. And we're waiting for the FSA to tell us which route we have to go down, the 6 months or the 2 years. And the 6-month route is the one where they say, well, all the ingredients in here are known and exist and are okay. So it takes 6 months. And the 2 years is if there's something novel in there that we haven't seen in food before. We don't have the answer to that yet. But I also want to say there's one late contender for the lab-grown list. It came in to me yesterday, lab-grown milk.
Get out of here.
Yeah, somebody.
You're making this up, Dale.
This is Frankenstein food. This is right here. They're taking what they call mammalian cells, and I imagine they mean cells from a mammal, in this case a cow, and they put them in a bioreactor to multiply them, and then somehow they're milking these cells. These cells produce milk in the same way they would when they're in a cow. And I read the story and it was quite funny because it began by talking about the problems of animal agriculture, the impact on water consumption, climate change, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, whoa, yeah, absolutely. And it's fantastic when the lab-grown industry is supporting the argument of the plant-based, let's say, movement that animal agriculture is a fundamental problem. But these guys boast that the lab-grown milk they're making is identical to cow milk. So they're missing the third kind of plank of our argument. It's not just the planet that it's bad for and wildlife, it's human health. They're producing milk that is equally bad to human health as cow milk, just without all of the absurd cruelty of the dairy industry.
And finally, we've got a couple of X-rated corners. I'll throw a couple in for you this week, Dale. Rock Ain't Dead on Insta says, you've got Ribena in your hair. I don't get that.
Not today. I think I've had coloured hair.
Because there was a colour in there. Yeah, because it was that aerosol can experiment, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what it was.
Simon Conway Smith on X, in response to the post about Richard Tice on Question Time, says, still suffering from delusion, I see, Dale.
I don't know what it's actually about, this one.
Yeah, well, no. Apparently, I would imagine Simon Conway Smith liked what Richard Tice said. You didn't, and now he's calling you delusional for disagreeing with Richard Tice.
It must be that. In which case, I'm just going to say, hands up, Gov. I must be delusional.
And finally, Jamie Lear on X says, bore off, Swampy.
I think we kind of heard that before, Jamie.
Is that the best he's got?
Yeah, is that it, Jamie?
The old Swampy gag. I mean, the gag's 35 years old, man. What's wrong with him?
Yeah. And I never met him either, Swampy.
Yeah, where is? I think he's still swamping somewhere.
He's probably, in which case that means he's underground somewhere, doesn't it?
Yeah, no one's ever seen him by definition of his existence, which is always out of the way. Dale, that is it. But we'll speak in a week.
Oh, good. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I know. I can tell.
Honest.
Couple of bits of business. Just a reminder to everybody to download this podcast and follow it at the same time. That way you get each episode kind of automatically. Remember, every Friday morning at 8 a.m. is when this podcast lands. So if you're listening to this for the first time and wondering, is this a regular thing? Where can I get it? Well, 8 o'clock every Friday, for goodness sake. I just said that.
Well,
there it is. And follow Dale on social media too, twitter.com/DaleVince, facebook.com/DaleVince, and on TikTok too.
Yes. I just, if I missed a cue, that's great.
There
I
was
just
no cue.
want to. No, of course not, because we don't do that. We don't have a script. But what I wanted to say was, it doesn't always land on a Friday at 8 in the morning. It is irregular. Like last week, I think it came several days late. That's usually on me for not having done the write-up or something in time. So just to say that. I mean, it won't always land at Friday. So if it doesn't appear, there is probably not a fault with your provider. It's a fault with us. That's all.
A fault with your provider, yeah. So this was your people that said, we're confident this week we can now say it's going to be every Friday. And you're going, don't be that confident.
I love their confidence.
That's
I love
beautiful.
it. Well, let's see. Let's see if we can do it.
Speak next week, Dale.
All right. I'll be here.